It's no secret that Spider-Man storylines are more often than not crammed full of weird and wild moments. With clones, twins, secret pregnancies, and arduous affairs found in some of the more boring Spider-Man issues, there is well and truly no limit for just how strange a comic starring our favourite web-slinger is allowed to get. In many ways, this is down to Peter Parker's everyman persona, as he's so relatable that you can place him in just about any situation and still have fans remain engaged, even if they're only really interested in just how much weirder Parker's life can become. And while the boundaries are occasionally crossed, for example, Spider-Man birthing himself crosses lines that humanity hasn't even invented yet, it's surprising just how often these weird moments seem almost normal because of the constant rollercoaster ride that is Peter's life. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 most inappropriate Spider-Man storylines. Number 10. Peter gets his eye ripped out and then eaten. Spider-Man The Other. If you listed out every expectation that fans had when going into Spider-Man The Other, the idea of Peter Parker having his eye ripped violently from its socket and then eaten by the person who was fighting him was likely pretty damn low on the list. And for good reason too. While gore isn't exactly forbidden in comics, Spider-Man generally veers away from particularly gross moments in the main continuity, which makes it more than slightly surreal that this happens in the first place. Also, crucially, the timing of this moment really takes away from the life-threatening fight that Mallen and Spider-Man are locked in, as the minute it happens your attention goes from who will win to just how gross it is that Mallen ate the web-slinger's still warm retina. Hilariously though, while this kinda gross moment would be incredibly well remembered among fans for any other hero, the amount of scrapes that Spider-Man gets into means that this eye-eating extravaganza has left many unaware it ever actually happened. Number 9. Spider-Man gets exploded by sand. Marvel Zombies Return, number 1. It's fair to say that the entirety of the Marvel Zombie series is pretty intensely messed up. Marvel Zombies Return, then, to our sick joy, is no exception to this rule, because the Spidey-centric issue of the series revolves around Peter killing a bunch of supervillains to eat them, as he feels as though this is a moral way to carry out his zombie shenanigans. Our favourite zombified web-slinger cuts a bloody path through his rogues gallery, all the way until he meets Sandman, who is seemingly significantly more averse to being made into a light lunch, and thus stuffs Peter full of sand until he bursts, which is all shown in delightfully gross detail. While the distended stomach of a screaming Spider-Man is not the goriest moment in the series, it still manages to feel like the most disturbing, which is kind of a feat when you think about it. Number 8. Norman Osborn and Gwen Stacy sleep together. Amazing Spider-Man number 512. The single most infamous Spider-Man storyline, without a shadow of a doubt, has to be Sins Past, which saw the weirdest sexual plot twist to ever happen in comics. And let me tell you, comics has some weird sexual plot twists. In a move that fans pretty much universally despised, it was revealed that just before Peter and Gwen Stacy started dating, she also slept with Norman Osborn, perhaps known better as the first Green Goblin, and became pregnant with twins from their encounter. This wild storyline is only made weirder by the art direction as well, as the panel of Norman creepily staring at Gwen while they have sex is one of the most single unsettling choices an artist has ever produced outside of a horror comic. Number 7. Spider-Man beats up a child. Superior Spider-Man number 3. The entire Superior Spider-Man series is all kinds of shades of messed up. After all, it is about Otto Octavius stealing Spider-Man's body and then pretending to be him. Of this assorted madness though, there are a couple scenes that stand out in particular, such as the kind of shocking moment where Spider-Man's enemy the Vulture decides to get a series of kids to attack the hero, resulting in the web-slinger knocking one of them unconscious in a pretty brutal hit. Sure, it later appears as though the kids are willing minions of the Vulture, as it's suggested he pays them in arcade tokens, but that doesn't change the fact that the Vulture essentially decided to use child labor in order to use a series of infants as a human shield, which is one of the most messed up villain plans of all time if you ask me. Number 6. Spider-Man watches Aunt May have sex. The Amazing Spider-Man number 699. Oi oi. When you look at all of the assorted cast of the Spider-Man franchise, Peter and Aunt May are by far the two most consistently close characters, having been bonded together from day one and only growing closer after Uncle Ben's death. It's clear that Peter very much considers May a motherly figure, which is why it's so profoundly disturbing that he's canonically had a first-person viewing of how she looks like when she has sex. That's because when Peter swaps bodies with Otto Octavius in Amazing Spider-Man 699, oi oi again, he discovers that he can access Doc Ock's memories, which he immediately does so, and then also immediately regrets when he's treated to Otto's memories of him and May boning down before their wedding. While we can hope that Peter no longer has those memories, there's a very real chance that he still does, which must make all those family dinners that little bit extra awkward. Number 5, Spider-Man is eaten alive by spiders. Vault of Spiders number 2. While there are practically infinite versions of Spider-Man for fans to fawn over, the fan-favourite version of the hero has to be that of Spiders-Man, a series of spiders who all collectively believe themselves to be Peter Parker and who work as a hive mind to fight crime. While this is initially all we're told about the strange arachnid hero, his full backstory comes out in Vault of Spiders number 2, where we see Spiders-Man's horrific origin story. As it turns out, the whole thing starts with Peter Parker, only instead of merely being bitten by a rogue spider, he falls into a vat of the radioactive bugs, who then promptly eat him alive. While it's not shown in graphic detail, the whole thing feels crazy intense for what was a joke character up to that point. That said, this is the same comic that brought us the spectacular Spider-Man beating down the Vulture while in a baker's hat, so yeah, maybe this series really can accomplish anything. Number 4, Aunt May is Spider-Man's mother. Spider-Man Trouble. If there's one thing that Aunt May is famous for, it's for, generally anyway, being the kindest person in the universe, and no, not slapping it with Doc Ock. This in mind, it's profoundly inappropriate to have a comic then where all of this kindness and care is just thrown out the window. Cue in Spider-Man Trouble, a much-hated comic that details the teenage lives of Aunt May, Uncle Ben, and Peter's parents. While it's a half-decent concept, the way the comic fails is in its plot, which sees Aunt May cheat on Ben with Peter's dad Riley, making her Spider-Man's biological mother. After Ben and May argue because Ben is sterile and thus knows that she's been cheating on him, Riley's girlfriend Mary steps in and tells May she'll pretend the child is hers. Number 3, Wolverine tries to sleep with MJ. Ultimate Spider-Man number 66. For the most part, the plot of Ultimate Spider-Man 66 is that of a cheesy 80s body swap film between Spider-Man and Wolverine, largely showing us how the pair struggle to adapt to the other's life and powers. It's all some light, feel-good comedy right up until the end, where Peter's longtime girlfriend Mary Jane reveals that Wolverine tried to use his time in Spider-Man's body to sleep with her. Given that it's also revealed that this body swap happened in the first place because Wolverine was being creepy to Jean Grey, the whole thing paints him as a lecherous old man, which seems like a weird way to characterize one of Marvel's most popular superheroes, even if he is an anti-hero half of the time. Number 2, Spider-Man's radioactive semen. Spider-Man Rain. The one sad thing about Spider-Man Rain is that it's actually a really interesting and unique take on Peter's life as a hero, and yet it will only ever be brought up in order to talk about the fact that in it, Spider-Man kills MJ by accident because every fluid his body produces is mildly radioactive, meaning that her demise is largely the fault of Peter having radioactive semen. The main issue with this is that it's revealed in what is clearly supposed to be a very dramatic and solemn moment, but the idea of someone's spider nut being a weapon of lethal destruction simply cannot be taken seriously. Number 1, Spider-Man gives birth to himself. The spectacular Spider-Man changes. There are few storylines more graphically weird than that of Spider-Man changes, which does exactly what it says on the tin, turning Peter from a lovable human superhero into a huge creepy spider due to the interference of the villainous Spider Queen. Magically, things only get weirder from here, as Spider Peter harbors one dark secret, as the toxins used to make him into an actual arachnid have also inexplicably made him pregnant. This nightmare scenario would possibly permanently scar some fans for life, as they were treated to a scene of a colossal spider giving birth to a human Peter Parker. Will you ever be able to get rid of the image of a naked Peter Parker ripping his way out of his old spider body? Well, it's very unlikely, and to be honest, I've kind of forgotten why I even like Spider-Man comics in the first place now.